Hello and welcome to the Evercade Retreat. My name is Gene Joke. In this video I'm talking about my favourite discoveries on the Evercade. By discoveries I am referring to games that basically were not on my radar at all before playing them on Evercade, and I probably would never have played them if not for getting into the Evercade ecosystem. I think it goes without saying, this is my discovery. Some of these games you might think of, well, how did you never hear of this, or something to that effect anyway. But much like the recent discussion around the announcement of Broken Sword and how some people hadn't heard of that, even though it's a massive selling series, everyone, has their own little bubbles and experiences, and well, this reflects mine, obviously. Okay, so for the sake of whatever, I've decided to make it a top 10, or well, a list of 10 games, because 10's a good number, it's round and whatever. Anyway, the first game, well, the 10th game, whatever, however you want to do it, not coming at number 10 anyway, is The Legend of Silk Road from Pico Arcade Collection 1. This is an arcade beat-em-up, which is developed by Unico, and it has pre-rendered graphics, which aren't the most appealing things. In fact, I can imagine it put most people off playing a game like this if you saw it in the arcade. Late 90s, I suppose, early 2000s. Looks like it's something you might have found on the Game Boy Advance. But underneath those kind of almost like hideous style graphics, there is a really good beat-em-up. Unlike most beat-em-ups, you have fighting game style special moves. You've got 3 characters to select from as you battle your way, I suppose, along the Silk Road, trying to rescue a princess or something. Who cares? It's a fighting game. Who really cares what the plot is? The simple fact is, it's a fun beat-em-up with some good action. There's some paths to choose along the way, and yeah, it's worth a go, and it's better than you might think based upon the game's appearance. So never judge a book by its cover, unless the cover happens to say 50 Shades or something. Then you should judge it, absolutely. And at number 9 of my arbitrary list of 10, whatever, there is no real order to this. I'm grouping together a whole bunch of games, and these are the low-tech games. Flea 2, Tapeworm Disco Puzzle, and Choo Choo Mimic. Now, there's no way I would have heard these or played them if they weren't for Evercade. I had never heard of any of them beforehand, and they're all an absolute treat. Now, I have to wonder what it is that Alistair Lowe, the main creator behind these games, or at least Flea and Flea 2 and Tapeworm anyway, wonder what it is about parasites. I wonder what's next. Is it crabs, the game? There's all manner of parasites to choose from, all doing disgusting things, so yeah, I'm sure there will be some other kind of parasite coming in the near future. But the simple fact is, these are simple but very fun games. There's really good puzzles, quite tight controls. I believe they're made in NES Maker, and they're probably some of the best games I've seen made in that software. Yeah, these are slightly unconventional, fairly simple on the surface games that have more depth than expected. Yeah, they're all simply great fun, and despite the unappealing nature of parasites as a whole, it's I'm quite happy to say that I do have fleas and a tapeworm. And of course, I should mention Choo Choo Mimic as well. I really enjoyed this game, though it's not a parasite thing, but you've still got the kind of be playing something like the bad guy, if you like. It's a bit like Choo Choo Rocket, but yeah, I really enjoyed this game. Had a good lot of fun with that as well. In some ways, I enjoyed it a bit more than the others because it's maybe more my cup of tea. Well, no, I'd say Tapeworm's probably my favourite overall, maybe. But yeah, I really like all these low-tech games and look forward to see what they might do next. And in at number 8, because, well, there's no ranking, is there? Anyway, the next one I'm doing is Tacky Paky from the Turpan Collection 1. And yeah, I'd never heard of this game, and on first play I wasn't really that impressed, but once I did put the time into it and get some skills with it, and I found myself really addicted to it. And I've done a couple of videos on it recently, some gameplay and a few tips on it, and yeah, I really like this game, and I could say there's almost no chance I would have come across it if not for the Evercade. Some of the shoot 'em ups I did know, and other ones I'd heard of, but yeah, Tacky Paky I'd never heard of at all, and yeah, I ended up really liking the game, so it gets here on this list. I can't really think of anything else interesting to say about it. It's a block puzzle game. You drop blocks, you match things up, you clear lines, and yeah, it is what it is. Very simple, but it is great fun. Once you get enough skills with it, you've got to get good enough at it to enjoy it, because otherwise it's just a bit too intense, and it's over quickly or goes badly before you've got the skills. So yeah, Tacky Paky, great block dropping puzzle game. And at number 7 is Euphoria The Saga. I think I've said this before, probably in the Sunsoft Collection 2 ranking video I did. I wasn't very familiar with many of Sunsoft's games before getting the Evercade. I'd heard of Blaster Master and a few others, and I'd played very few, and the ones I had played were the later games that were less well regarded. And yeah, Euphoria was a discovery for me, and it gave me a real sense of nostalgia for something I'd never played. It's a great non-linear sort of platform adventure, and yeah, it's an absolute joy to play. I've had a blast going through it, and it was one of my most pleasant discoveries of 2024, really. So yeah, fantastic little game. Well, not that it's that little, it takes a bit of doing. I mean, it's not as challenging as something like Mr. Gimmick, which is also a discovery for me, and because it's less punishing, it's a joy to play. One of the best NES games on the Evercade, and to be honest, one of the best NES games I've ever played. But again, I've not played a huge amount. I never had one back in the day growing up. So yeah, if you haven't picked up Sunsoft 2 and you like a good sort of cute platform type game, well worth picking up just for this game alone. And there are other good ones on there as well. So yeah, it's a great cart, well worth picking up. So yeah, that's enough ramble. Let's get on to the next one. And at number 6 is one that might surprise people that it is discovery, and that is Dig Dug 2. Obviously, I had played Dig Dug back in the day, and I was quite familiar with it. And I'd probably heard of Dig Dug 2, I can't really recall, but I'd certainly never played it. And yeah, I initially when I got it, I thought, yeah, it's not as good as Dig Dug, and left it at that. But it came up in Katie's challenge on the Evercade Discord, and I found myself putting a bit of effort into it, and once again getting addicted and really enjoying the game. I think it's a fantastic sequel, and in some ways I think I actually prefer it to Dig Dug. I mean, there's no nostalgia for me with this one, so yeah, I think just based on the gameplay and that, I think I do prefer this to the original Dig Dug. Either way, they're both really good games, but this is the only one that fits on the list. So yeah, again, not too much to say, but like I said, people might be surprised that this was discovery for me, but that's the way it goes. Okay, and next at number 5 of my arbitrarily placed list of numbered thingy whatsits Hoojaflips, we have Biome Mechanical Toy from the Galco Arcade Collection Volume 1. This is a run and gun with a very sort of cutesy style. I mean, I suppose it's very European, but then again, most of the Galco games are, I suppose. And yeah, it's, I'd argue, probably the best run and gun game we have on the Evercade so far. I mean, Midnight Resistance is close, but I think with the control system and that, I think Biome Mechanical Toy just tops it with, like I say, better controls, and it's fast frantic action. Got a unique and some European weirdness, I suppose you might say, to it. Very sort of, some levels very Alice in Wonderland or Wild West and things. But yeah, it all works as a whole, and yeah, it was a really good game and my favourite from that collection. Yeah, just a good blaster, really. Okay, at number 4 we have another Namco game. Yep, there's another Namco game that I wasn't familiar with, and that is Mappy. Now, fun enough, I had played a game a lot like Mappy on the ZX Spectrum. There was a game called Crime Busters, of which there was 2 games called Crime Busters on the Spectrum. One was a blatant rip-off of something else, and then there was the one that I played, which was basically a blatant rip-off of Mappy. And yeah, you go around and you jump on the trampolines just like in Mappy. And yeah, I really enjoyed the game, although that was just a single screen thing, whereas Mappy scrolls a bit. But anyway, yeah, the key gameplay was the same. And yeah, playing Mappy was like going back and playing on my old ZX Spectrum. And yeah, it was a really good game. I had a lot of fun with it. And honestly, I'd never even heard of Mappy or Mappy Kids or anything before Evercade. They weren't even remotely on my radar. So yeah, these might be well known to some people, but for me, it was a complete non-entity and nothing burger to me until the Evercade, which is why it makes this list. Yeah, it's just a simple, fun score chasing game. And at number 3 on my arbitrary placed list is The Mysterious Stones from the Technos Arcade Collection 1. It's a riff on Indiana Jones, particularly the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you run into these ancient temples, you steal a treasure and you get out, and you then loot that, getting different treasures and getting more points. The trick is finding your way around, avoiding the traps and doing things either within a certain time or getting the shooting the spirit thing, which unlocks the door. Yeah, it's not the easiest arcade game to get into. Really, when I first played it, I thought it was a load of rubbish, and it wasn't until again it came up in Katie's challenge I put the time and effort into learning it, and again found myself getting absolutely hooked, looping it a few times on one continue and getting genuinely good at it. It's a fantastic little game once you put the time in to learn it. And in at number 2 is Cathedral. I had to kind of choose between some of the sort of modern indie games that are on the Evercade as to which one is the most discovery. Things like Xenocrisis, well, I'd played that before, and Tanglewood I was very aware of, and Alwa's Awakening I was aware of. I hadn't played it, and certainly I hadn't played the 8-bit version. And obviously other ones have come since, like Astro and Demons of Astarbog. I was aware of those prior to getting an Evercade. So yeah, many of the others I was aware of to some degree. Cathedral, not at all. I'd never heard of it in any shape or form. And yeah, it was I wouldn't say a pleasant surprise. Before I got the cart, I had seen reviews and I'd heard good things. But again, it was new to me, so I think it fits this list, and it is a fantastic game. It's a tough Metroidvania, and being that it's runs natively, you can't sort of abuse save states to make things easier. You have to work the game on its own terms, and it does provide a bit of a challenge. Some of the bosses can be a real pain, and yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I still haven't finished the game. I've taken a break from it, catching up with the more recent carts that have come out, so I need to get back to it to finish off my review video for the collection. But yeah, spoiler, it's a good game. So before I unveil my number 1 pick for my favourite discovery on Evercade, even though as I've stated several times during this list, it's in no particular order, but the number 1 pick is chosen for a reason. But anyway, before I do that, I have an honourable mention, and one that should be on the list, but I've talked about it a bit recently, and it's been on a lot of people's lips in the last couple of months, and that is Batsugun, because it's an absolutely fantastic shoot 'em up. I heard of it probably somewhere along lines talking about Evercade, or other people talking about games I'd like to see. Yeah, I'd never heard of it before. At least I don't think I had. Certainly never played it before I got the Turplan Collection 3. Well, actually I did, because I played it on MAME, but that was only after I'd heard about it in anticipation of getting the collection. So yeah, honourable mention, Batsugun, fantastic game. Anyway, my number 1 pick, the one discovery that kind of actually came out of nowhere for me, and that is the Sword of Fargold. Now, I had a C64 back in the day, and yeah, I enjoyed playing on it. It's it's a good system, but I was more of a Spectrum guy. But anyway, this was an early game. I think it came out on the Commodore 16 first and was ported to the 64, or just worked on it, whatever. And yeah, I'd never heard of it. It doesn't look like much. To be honest, if I played it as a kid, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it much, or it depends on when I played it. Yeah, it's one I didn't think all that much of at first. Yeah, after playing Rogue 64, I gave Sword of Fargold another go and sort of got into it, quite enjoyed it. And again, this one came up in KDs, and I went from enjoying it, playing a few levels and things like that, to beating the game in one sitting, which took a lot of doing. It's something I've done a couple of times now, and it's become a game that I play quite often. There's something about it. It's just the simplicity of it, or I suppose the fine line between the simplicity and the complexity of it, and the challenge of actually going through all the levels, finding the Sword of Fargold, and then trying to go back up through the levels without having the sword stolen. Yeah, it's a challenging game and really fun. And I suppose obviously the rogue nature of it, the randomization really adds to it. Each playthrough is a bit different. What spells you'll come across, what maps you'll find. Will you find pit traps and things. You get a good run, and it can go really well and go quite easily. Get another on, and yeah, you won't even make it out the first dungeon. So yeah, I really enjoy the randomization of it, the rogue elements, if you like. Fantastic game, and it's one that I've completed a fair few times already, and I suspect I'll probably do fairly regular playthroughs of it, or even if not full playthroughs, but just going through and having doing a run and seeing how far I get. So yeah, these are my top 10, 11 discovery games, or games I discovered thanks to the Evercade. And yeah, maybe you've got your own. Also you can put it in the comments if you want. Maybe some of these are games that you haven't really given the time of day, or haven't played that much of, to see if you really like them, because as I mentioned, a few of them have taken a bit of getting into. So yeah, if you've played them before or not, but yeah, if they take your fancy, or if something I've said here interests you, give the games a go, because at the end of the day, games are there for playing, and sometimes they do take a bit of work to get the most out of, but it's often worth it. Anyway, that's enough for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.